You have just carried a heavy, dark green sphere from the car, your arms straining slightly under the weight, anticipating the cool, crisp relief of summer's sweetest gift. You place it on the counter. You take the knife. The blade sinks in with a satisfying crunch, splitting the rind open. But then, you see it. The flesh inside is not the deep, vibrant ruby red you prayed for. It is pale. It is pinkish white, like a faded sunset. And when you cut a slice and take that first bite, expecting an explosion of sugar and juice, you get nothing but wet, fibrous crunch. It tastes like cold water and disappointment. It has no soul. It has no sweetness. It is merely a vessel for hydration, devoid of flavor. You look at that half-eaten melon sitting on the plate, and you feel a small, sharp pang of guilt. Not because you did something wrong, but because you spent good money on something that offered you nothing in return. In a world where every dollar is counted, where we work hard for our bread and our butter, wasting food feels like a moral failure. You think to yourself, I should have known better. I should have picked the other one. But here is the truth that the grocery stores do not want you to know. It is not your fault. You were never taught the old way. The modern world has stripped away the sensory education we once inherited from our grandparents. We have been trained to look at barcodes and price tags, not at the stem and the field spot. We have been taught to trust the uniformity of the supermarket aisle, which is a lie. Nature is not uniform. Nature is subtle. And by the time you finish listening to me today, you will have the verified rules to never bring home a tasteless watermelon again. You will learn to read the fruit like a book, using eyes and hands that have been sharpened by generations of farmers who could not afford to make a mistake. I am Isaac Beiler, and I keep house and farm here in Lancaster County the way it was handed down to me before the world got so fast. My days begin before the sun crests over the cornfields, and they end when the chores are done, not when the clock says they are. I do not use chemicals to force my crops to grow faster than God intended, and I do not use tricks to sell you something that is not true. If you value this kind of plain, practical know-how that the world is trying to bury, I'd ask you to subscribe to this channel. It helps us keep these old traditions alive for the next generation. It tells the algorithm that there are still people who care about substance over speed. Now, one honest word so you trust me. Picking a perfect watermelon is not magic. It is observation. It is patience. And sometimes, even with all the knowledge in the world, you might pick a dud. That is life. But if you follow these rules, your success rate will go from a gamble to a certainty. I cannot promise you perfection every single time, because the soil and the rain have their own minds. But I can promise you that you will stop bringing home white, tasteless disappointments. We need to talk about why the watermelons in your local supermarket are so often bland. It is not an accident. It is a system. The modern industrial food chain is built on logistics, not flavor. Big brands and grocery chains profit from your lack of knowledge because they need fruits that can survive being thrown into trucks, stacked in warehouses, and sat on shelves for weeks without rotting. To achieve this, they breed watermelons for thick rinds and durability, not for sugar content. They harvest them early, while they are still hard and unripe, because a ripe melon is fragile. A ripe melon bruises. A ripe melon spoils. So they pick them green, ship them across the country, and hope that the ethylene gas in the storage containers will turn them red enough to fool your eye. But it cannot turn them sweet. Sugar comes from the vine, from the sun, from the time spent ripening on the earth. Once that melon is cut from the vine, the sugar production stops. It does not continue to ripen in your fridge. It only decays. The system runs itself on waste. It expects you to buy 3 bad ones to find 1 good one. It counts on your ignorance. But plain knowledge costs only pocket change. It costs you nothing but attention. When you learn to select your own produce, you opt out of their system of planned obsolescence. You take back the power to choose quality over convenience. The first rule is to look for the field spot. Turn the watermelon over. On the bottom, where it rested on the ground while growing, there will be a patch of skin that is different from the rest. If this spot is white or pale green, put it back. That melon was picked too early. It did not have enough time to soak up the sun and develop its sugars. You want to see a field spot that is a deep, creamy yellow. Some folks call it the butter spot. The darker and more orange-yellow it is, the longer it stayed on the vine. This is horticultural fact. The chlorophyll breaks down in that shaded area as the melon matures, revealing the yellow pigment underneath. A creamy yellow spot tells you the melon reached full physiological maturity before it was harvested. Do not be afraid of a big, ugly yellow blotch. In the world of watermelons, beauty is not symmetry. Beauty is evidence of time spent in the sun. The second rule concerns the shape. You are looking for uniformity, but not the kind you see in a factory. You want a melon that is symmetrical and round, or oval, depending on the variety. But here's the key. Avoid any melon that has irregular bumps, dents, or odd protrusions. These irregularities usually indicate inconsistent watering during the growing season. If the farmer let the soil dry out completely and then flooded it, the melon grows in spurts, creating weak spots in the flesh. You want a melon that looks like it grew steadily, day after day, with consistent care. A lopsided melon will have lopsided flavor. One side may be sweet, and the other may be bland. We seek balance. In nature, balance is health. A smooth, even shape suggests that the plant had access to steady moisture and nutrients, resulting in a consistent texture and sweetness throughout the entire fruit. The third rule is about weight. This is the one that surprises most people. When you pick up 2 watermelons of the same size, you want the heavier one, always. Pick one up, feel its density, then pick up another of similar dimensions. The heavier one is full of water, and since a watermelon is 92% water, more water means more juice, and more juice means a crisper, more refreshing bite. A light melon, even if it is large, is likely dry inside. It may have started to dehydrate on the vine, or it may have been stored in conditions that drew the moisture out. We call this hollow heart, in some cases, where the center becomes dry and mealy. You want a melon that feels solid like a cannonball. It should feel denser than it looks. This heaviness is a sign of cellular turgor pressure, which is the scientific term for how full the cells are with water. High turgor pressure equals crispness. Low turgor pressure equals mush. The fourth rule involves the sound. Yes, you must tap it. I know it looks foolish in the middle of a quiet grocery store, but you must do it. Cup your hand and give the melon a firm knock with your knuckles. You are listening for a deep, hollow resonance. It should sound like a drum, or like you are knocking on a wooden door. If it sounds dull, flat, or thuddy, like knocking on a solid piece of concrete, it is overripe or mealy inside. The flesh has lost its structure. If it sounds high-pitched and tight, like a tennis ball, it is underripe. The perfect sound is a low, resonant boom. This happens because the air pockets inside the mature melon vibrate at a specific frequency. As the melon ripens, the flesh separates slightly from the rind, creating a cavity that amplifies the sound. It is an acoustic test of internal structure. Do not be shy. The clerk will not mind. You are doing your due diligence. The fifth rule is to examine the webbing. Look closely at the surface of the rind. You may see brown, scar-like lines that look like spider webs or lightning bolts. Many people think these are defects. They are not. These are sugar scars. They form when bees pollinate the flower. The more times a flower is pollinated, the sweeter the fruit will be. The webbing is the physical record of successful pollination. A melon with extensive, coarse webbing is often much sweeter than a smooth, pristine one. The smooth ones look pretty, but they often lack the complex sugar profile of the heavily pollinated ones. Look for the ugliness. Look for the scars. In gardening, as in life, the things that show struggle and interaction with the world often yield the greatest rewards. The bee did its job, and the melon recorded it. Trust the scars. The sixth rule is about the stem. If the watermelon still has a stem attached, look at it closely. If the stem is green and fresh, the melon was picked too early. It was torn from the vine before it was ready. You want to see a stem that is dry, brown, and shriveled. Even better, if the stem has fallen off naturally, leaving a small, dry indentation, that is a good sign. It means the melon detached from the vine on its own, or was easily separated because it was fully ripe. A green stem indicates that the plant was still actively feeding the fruit. meaning it was interrupted in its growth cycle. A dry stem indicates that the connection had naturally weakened as the fruit matured. This is a simple visual cue that requires no tools, only a keen eye. Remember, nature disconnects when the work is done. Man disconnects when the schedule demands it. Look for nature's timing. The seventh rule is a reminder about perspective and measurement. While we are talking about selecting fruit, remember that the line between medicine and poison is the dose. This applies to everything in the garden and the kitchen. Do not overconsume even the sweetest melon. Sugar is sugar, whether it comes from a cane stalk or a vine. Enjoy it in moderation. And when you are preparing it, use level measurements if you are adding it to recipes. Do not heap, do not guess. Precision brings consistency. But in the selection process, trust your senses, your eyes, your hands, your ears. These are instruments that have been calibrated by millions of years of human evolution. Use them. Do not rely on the sticker. Do not rely on the brand. Rely on the evidence in front of you. Now, let us speak of what most people throw away. In a kitchen run with care, there is no such thing as garbage. When you finish eating the red flesh of the watermelon, you are left with the white rind and the green skin. Most people toss this into the compost or the trash. This is a mistake. The white part of the rind, the albedo, is rich in citrulline, an amino acid that improves blood flow and reduces muscle soreness. It is also high in fiber. Do not waste it. You can pickle it. Slice the white rind into chunks, brine it with vinegar, sugar, cloves, and cinnamon, and let it sit for a week. You will have a crunchy, tangy treat that rivals any cucumber pickle. It is a traditional southern dish, but it makes sense anywhere. You can also grate the white rind and add it to slaws or stir-fries. It absorbs flavors beautifully. And the green skin? It can be candied or blended into smoothies for added chlorophyll. When you use the whole fruit, you honor the labor that went into growing it. You respect the soil, you respect the rain, you reduce your waste to zero. This is the Amish way. We do not throw away potential, we transform it. Let us look at the numbers plainly. An average family might spend $20 a week on pre-cut fruit or expensive snacks that offer little nutritional value. By learning to select whole, high-quality produce like watermelons, you cut that cost significantly. A whole watermelon costs perhaps $5 or $6, and it feeds a family for several days. That is a savings of hundreds of dollars a year. But the real return on investment is not just financial. It is qualitative. When you serve your children a watermelon that is truly sweet, truly crisp, and truly flavorful, you are teaching them what real food tastes like. You are calibrating their palates to appreciate natural sweetness rather than artificial additives. You are showing them that effort yields reward, that taking the time to choose carefully results in a better experience. This is a lesson that extends beyond the kitchen. It teaches patience. It teaches discernment. It teaches value. In a world of instant gratification, these are rare commodities. You are buying peace of mind. You are buying health. You are buying tradition. I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments below what state you are in, what county, and how old your house is. I read every word. I like to know who I am speaking to and where you are planting your roots. Are you in the city, struggling to find good produce? Are you in the country, growing your own? Let us build a community of people who care about the source of their food. And if you have found this helpful, please subscribe. It is a small act, but it signals to the world that there is still a demand for wisdom over hype.